Javier Mendez reveals Khabib Nurmagomedov was scared of Alex Volkanovski. Daniel Cormier believes Jake Paul is overrated. Chael Sonnen goes off on Robert Whittaker for demanding a trilogy with Israel Adesanya. And UFC announces welterweight title eliminator, among other exciting fights. Khabib Nurmagomedov may have taken a break from coaching, but he's keeping a close eye on the progress of his teammates who train in the United States. Most recently, Khabib's longtime friend and training partner Islam Makhachev put his lightweight title on the line against Alex Volkanovski at UFC 284, and he barely managed to win. Heading into the fight, Makhachev was confident that he'd blow Volkanovski away. Khabib was a bundle of nerves back home in Dagestan, however, his coach Javier Mendez has revealed.
Khabib would call me up and Khabib would say, "Coach, I'm really worried about this fight. Volkanovski's really, really tough. I'm concerned for Islam on this one a little bit." And I'm like, I'm not. We're going to win this fight. I don't know how easy, how hard, but we're going to win this fight. So I know you're worried, Khabib, but I'm not worried. Of course, fast forward to the fight, right? You know, it was everything Khabib said it was going to be. Super, super tough fight.
Makhachev was pushed to the limit by Volkanovski at UFC 284. He and his fans literally had their hearts in their mouths in the dying minute of the fight when Volk dropped him with a big punch and followed it up with vicious ground and pound, but Makhachev was saved by the bell. Much of the post-fight talk was about Volkanovski being robbed of a legitimate victory. Even the featherweight champion himself thought he won after he rewatched the fight. Quote, "Just watch the fight. I definitely think I won rounds 2, 3, and 5. Surprised I didn't get my hand raised. Let's do the rematch anywhere and anytime." While Volkanovski and many others in the MMA community believe the Aussie won 3 out of the 5 rounds, Mendez thinks Volkanovski only managed to win the 5th. Mendez scored the fight 4-1 in his student's favor.
For me, Alex won that 5th round, the last minute and a half of that last 5th round. And to me, I only gave him that round.
Just that one, right?
But it was devastating. It was devastating. So in people's eyes, you know, that was, oh, you know, he did so fantastic. He won the fight. And then you look back, well, no, he won more fights because the other rounds were closer. But Islam won. To me, Islam won 4-1. And if you say 3-2, okay, 3-2.
In January this year, Khabib Nurmagomedov announced that he will be stepping away from mixed martial arts as a promoter and as a coach to spend more time with his family. For that reason, Makhachev didn't have Khabib in his corner and the Eagle was dearly missed. How would Alex Volkanovski have fared against Khabib Nurmagomedov? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Daniel Cormier thinks Tommy Fury exposed Jake Paul in their boxing match in February when the Englishman beat his American counterpart by a split decision. Prior to that, Paul was 6-0 in professional boxing, with wins against big names like Tyrone Woodley and Anderson Silva. Last year, when Paul beat Silva, Cormier went as far as saying that the YouTube sensation was a legitimate boxer. But the UFC legend sees him as a one-trick pony after his first career loss.
And when watching Jake fight against Tommy Fury, he's not as good as we originally thought because Tommy Fury pretty much limited him to just throwing overhand rights. He didn't have an answer for Tommy Fury, a guy that's been boxing for as long as Fury's been boxing. He just kept trying to hit him with the overhand right.
Paul is a sizable favorite ahead of his next boxing fight, which will be against Nate Diaz. The former UFC lightweight title challenger doesn't stand much of a chance, according to many in the MMA community, but Cormier thinks he can outbox Paul because of his experience and variety.
I think that is where I give Nate Diaz the chance, because Diaz has been boxing for a long time. Diaz has done rounds with Andre Ward. Diaz has been around the sport of boxing and fighting for a really long time.
Middleweight GOAT Anderson Silva slightly disagrees with Daniel Cormier as far as Paul's boxing talents are concerned. However, he also thinks Diaz's experience will be the difference come fight night.
I respect both. Jake have a good coach, you know, he's a very smart, and the fight is not about power, it's about timing, you know, and both have good timing, you know, make a lot of experience in boxing and learning a lot every day. And Nick is a beast, you know. When you go inside to fight with Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz, you need to prepare yourself for war. I agree, Nate, you have more experience.
Do you agree with Daniel Cormier that Jake Paul is overrated? Chael Sonnen thinks Robert Whittaker needs to give up on his dream of fighting for the UFC middleweight title as long as Israel Adesanya is the champion. Despite losing to Adesanya twice in his career, Whittaker is 100% confident that he will get the job done if he gets a third chance.
So I've seen the things like, oh, Rob's just going to keep fighting him. Rob, just give it up, blah, blah, blah. You know, you see the stuff. And it's like, yeah, but what do you want me to do?
Right.
Like, I can't quit. I'm in this game, and he's got the belt, and I want to win. I want to take that off him. I'm going to beat him. Izzy fought Pereira 4 times over the course of his career. You know, I'm only going to need to fight Izzy 3 times because I will beat him that next time. I am 100% confident that I will beat him that next time.
Unfortunately, Chael Sonnen doesn't see a point in a third fight between Adesanya and Whittaker. He thinks it's better if the reigning champion fights someone new.
Being able to feel that one time, getting a comeback and then going there again, you were going to close the gap greatly. Sure you are. Whittaker be a fine example where he did. Sure you are. You're second after you get to feel that once, that unique. How many times do you want to do that with Adesanya? I mean, how many times does he need to do that? How many times does he have to prove and then reprove? Give you an opportunity, then give you another opportunity where you've got better opportunity. How many times does he have to do that?
Adesanya has beaten everyone in the middleweight top 5, which currently includes Alex Pereira, Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, and Paulo Costa. In a recent interview, Adesanya said that he wants to fight a fresh face. And if that's the case, South Africa's Dricus du Plessis would be a great option. For now, Adesanya is enjoying a hero's reception back home in New Zealand. Upon his return to his country, Izzy was welcomed by a group of local fans who held a grand ceremony in his honor, the highlight of which was a traditional haka dance. Who do you think Israel Adesanya should fight next? The UFC has added some exciting fights to its upcoming cards. First up, we have a potential welterweight title eliminator on our hands as Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad will lock horns in a short-notice co-main event at UFC 288. Benil Dariush and Charles Oliveira were originally expected to co-headline UFC 288, but the fight was moved to UFC 289 in June after the Brazilian pulled out due to injury. Burns most recently fought at UFC 286, where he beat Jorge Masvidal. Muhammad, who had been calling for a fight against a top contender, has finally had his wish. Elsewhere, we have a bantamweight title eliminator between Irene Aldana and Raquel Pennington. With champion Amanda Nunes booked to face Juliana Pena in a trilogy, Aldana and Pennington will take each other head-on in a rematch at UFC Fight Night on the 20th of May. In their first fight in 2019, Pennington won by a split decision. At UFC 289, we have a mouth-watering middleweight matchup between Chris Curtis and Nasruddin Imavov. Curtis appears to be getting a quick turnaround after losing to Kelvin Gastelum at UFC 287, whereas Imavov is also looking to return to winning ways after losing to Sean Strickland in his most recent fight. Verbal agreements are in place for the matchup, with contracts expected to be signed soon. UFC 289 will also feature a high-octane light heavyweight fight between Khalil Roundtree and Chris Daukaus. Daukaus will be moving down to the 205-pound division after a below-average stint at heavyweight, where he won 4 and lost 3 fights. The two fighters are on different trajectories. Roundtree is currently on a 3-fight winning streak, whereas Daukaus is on a 3-fight losing streak. Who will come out on top when the cage door closes at UFC 289? Give us your thoughts on today's stories in the comments section. If you liked our video, please show us some love by subscribing and turning on the notifications so that you get notified the next time we upload one. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.